You stand at the kitchen table with 6 seed packets, a grocery receipt, and a backyard that never looks quite large enough. The packets promise abundance. You look at the receipt and feel as if fresh food costs more every month. So you search for the old garden plan that supposedly fed a family from a scrap of ground. I found the real government bulletin behind that story. It cost 5 cents in 1930, and it assumed a backyard about 30 feet by 60 feet. The source is useful, but the legend grew larger than the paper. Near the end, I will read you the planning entry I built from the real bulletin and show you the exact sentence that keeps this method honest. For now, keep your seed packets closed. Before a household plants one row, it needs to know what this little rectangle could do, what it could never promise, and why those 2 answers belong in the same ledger. Down in my workshop, the green ledger stays in the top drawer of the bench. I set it under one warm lamp beside a copy of Farmer's Bulletin number 1044, The City Home Garden. The real bulletin was issued in March of 1919 and revised in June of 1930. Its cover listed 5 cents. I lay a ruler across the open page and put the seed packets on the other side of the bench. That order matters. The page comes before the purchase. The measurement comes before the hope. That was the publication price. It was never the cost of seeds, tools, labor, or a season of vegetables. Here is the honesty frame, friend. I am Walt, a storyteller persona. This ledger scene is storytelling. The bulletin, dates, price, measurements, and safety guidance are real and named. My father wrote things down so the household would not have to depend on memory. I follow the same rule with public records. The bulletin said, fresh vegetables for an average family may be grown on a large backyard or city lot. It also warned that no definite plan could fit every garden because local conditions varied. Those 2 sentences belong together. One gives the household a reason to begin. The other keeps the promise inside the fence. By the end of this video, you will have the exact planning method, and you can put the first version of it on paper this weekend. I spent my working life as a machinist. In the shop, a drawing was cheaper than a ruined piece of stock. You measured first because steel did not care how confident you felt. I should have carried that habit into the house much sooner. I ignored this ledger for 50 years. Then a $480 winter electric bill sent me back to the drawer. I aimed my anger at myself for treating every household problem as something to buy my way out of. I had lived in the same house for more than 40 years and still skipped the drawing. A machinist who guessed at a cut blamed himself when the part went in the scrap bin. At home, I kept calling the same kind of mistake convenience. I bought first, measured later, and gave the wasted money a softer name. The garden bulletin made the lesson plain. 30 feet multiplied by 60 feet is 1,800 square feet. 1/8 acre is 5,445 square feet. Those are very different entries. The 5-cent publication price has a general 2024 purchasing power comparison of about 94 cents using Bureau of Labor Statistics data. That comparison does not price a garden. It gives a general purchasing power comparison for the bulletin's printed price. In trade language, this is layout before stock. In plain language, draw the work before you spend money on it. The method begins with the rectangle you actually have. Measure the usable length and width. The bulletin's assumed backyard was about 30 feet by 60 feet, or 1,800 square feet. Your drawing may be smaller, narrower, or broken by a path. Put those facts on paper. Mark the house, fence, gate, water reach, tree roots, and changing shadows during the day. The bulletin recommended drawing a plan and deciding each crop's location before planting. It said rows generally should run north and south, while also noting that convenient cultivation could make the long direction more important. That is a planning judgment, not a sacred compass rule. The reveal is a sequence of decisions made before the first seed goes into the ground. Next, list the vegetables the household will actually eat. Then ask the State Agricultural Extension Service about varieties adapted to local conditions. A Department of Agriculture radio script from March 12, 1937, said the Extension Service in each state could supply that information. Use the old source for the planning principle and current local guidance for today's variety and planting window decisions. The same radio script gave a narrow timing example. Radishes could mature in 20 to 30 days. Because their prime eating condition was brief, it suggested successive radish plantings, maybe 2 weeks apart. It also gave the specific example of planting peas with radishes so the radishes could leave before the peas needed more room. Keep that example inside its evidence. It does not turn every crop into a 2-week schedule. On the paper plan, write the planting date, the expected maturity range, and the next decision date for each row. Draw the 30 by 60 foot example to scale once, even if your own space differs. 1 inch can stand for 10 feet. The example then becomes 3 inches by 6 inches on paper. Mark the full 1,800 square feet. Then shade out every area the household cannot actually plant. The remaining shape is the honest starting point. Keep the bulletin's 2 statements separate. It said fresh vegetables for an average family may be grown on a large backyard or city lot. It also assumed an average backyard about 30 feet by 60 feet. It never assigned a measured harvest to that exact rectangle. A machinist would call that a setup sheet. A household can call it Saturday's list. Either way, 1,800 square feet becomes manageable only after the work has an order. What buried this kind of planning in my own house was the faceless promise that every inconvenience could be solved by one more purchase, one more payment, or one more product made for a single job. The advertisement was always brighter than the notebook. The monthly charge looked smaller than the yearly total. The old entry started to feel slow. It is not conspiracy. It is arithmetic. When I stopped writing the entries, I stopped seeing the pattern. The 1930 City Bulletin and the 1935 Farm Bulletin show the difference. The city plan assumed about 1,800 square feet. The later subsistence plan allocated 1/2 acre to miscellaneous vegetables, 1/2 acre to fruits, and 1/4 acre to potatoes or sweet potatoes. Together, that was 1 1/4 acres. The larger bulletin placed garden and orchard production beside poultry, dairy products, and, under certain conditions, home-produced meat. Household knowledge faded in my life because buying felt immediate and measuring felt old-fashioned. No one person did that to me. A whole system of convenience made the bad entry easy. Opening the ledger reversed the order. First, define the job. Then decide whether the household needs a purchase at all. My own household rule asks for a pencil before a catalog, a measurement before a package, and a week of observation before a season of commitment. The institutional pressure is anonymous because it arrives from every direction at once. A shelf label, a payment plan, and a cheerful advertisement all make speed feel cheaper than attention. In my house, the cost appeared later as duplicate tools, unused supplies, and entries I could not explain. The lesson I take from the garden page offers a different rhythm: plan, plant, observe, record, and revise. If you're thinking this only works for people with a farm and a root cellar, stay with me. This next part is for the house you live in right now. Begin with safety. because a compact plan cannot rescue a bad site. The Environmental Protection Agency recommends reviewing land use history and testing soil when a proposed garden may carry industrial or commercial contamination. If safe soil cannot be established, do not force the 1930 layout into that ground. Follow current local guidance for clean soil, raised beds, barriers, and safe irrigation water. Do not copy historical pesticide recipes, chemical dusts, raw manure timing, or mystery soil amendments. For any pesticide, use only a product labeled for the exact crop and pest. Follow every label direction and pre-harvest interval, and use current local guidance for compost and manure. The old page tells us what people tried. Current authority controls what we do now. Plant only what the household can tend, harvest, wash, and store. A 30 by 60 foot drawing fails when the site is contaminated, the water is unsafe, useful light is too limited for the selected crops, or the household has no time for the work. A 20 to 30 day radish still needs care during those days. A second planting 2 weeks later creates a second obligation. Start smaller than your ambition. Record planting date, first harvest, final harvest, amount eaten, amount shared, and amount wasted. 6 columns can help the next plan become more realistic. At harvest, the Food and Drug Administration says to wash hands with warm water and soap for 20 seconds before and after preparing fresh produce. Rinse produce before peeling so the knife does not carry dirt or bacteria inward. Rub produce under plain running water. There is no need for soap or commercial produce wash. Use a clean brush for firm produce. Dry it with a clean cloth or paper towel. Remove the outer leaves of lettuce or cabbage. Keep the refrigerator at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 4 degrees Celsius. Raw produce has no single universal internal cooking endpoint. If it becomes part of a cooked dish, the current endpoint for that actual dish controls. If you preserve food, match the exact food, preparation, pack style, jar size, elevation, processing time, and, where required, pressure to a current tested Department of Agriculture or National Center for Home Food Preservation table. For acid foods, use the correct current boiling water processing time and adjust it for elevation. Low-acid vegetables require the correct pressure canner time and pressure for your elevation. Historical canning schedules are never the operating instruction. Wash for 20 seconds. Keep the refrigerator at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius. Those measurements are worth hearing twice. A known allergy to any crop overrides the garden plan, and cross-contact remains possible. Older adults, pregnant people, young children, and people with weakened immune systems should follow current clinician and public health guidance. This is general education, not medical advice. A March 1936 radio talk reported Mrs. McCall's 1935 household record. Her family had 9 members. The report listed $129.54 of fresh vegetables used, $18.78 sold, and $41.25 of canned vegetables. It gave no plot size, so those figures cannot prove the 30 by 60 foot layout, a 1/8 acre result, or a national outcome. Its own arithmetic also warns us to check the page. Labor at $5.88 plus seed and fertilizer at $10.35 equals $16.23. One printed line said $15.23. The source is useful and the error stays in the record. If you want a separate printable household system, the Depression household system is linked in the description below. It is 74 printable pages with 30 food-stretching recipes and 52 Saturday actions. It is $17 once with no subscription at grandpasledger.com. It is one payment and then the pages are yours. Now stay right here because what comes next is the entry I built this whole video around. I opened the ledger to a page marked June 1930. The page in my workshop is storytelling. Beside it sits the real source, Farmer's Bulletin number 1044, the City Home Garden. You can read it free at archive.org. The bulletin was first issued in March of 1919 and revised in June of 1930. The cover price was 5 cents. The copy in front of me is a public government document with a bulletin number, title, issue history, and printed limitation. Here is the planning entry I built from those authenticated facts. Start with the ground you have. Draw it before you buy for it. The old bulletin separately said that fresh vegetables for an average family may be grown on a large backyard or city lot. It assumed an average backyard about 30 feet by 60 feet. It did not quantify what that exact rectangle would supply. 30 by 60 is 1,800 square feet, roughly 4/100ths of an acre. 1/8 acre is 5,445 square feet. Keep those numbers separate. The bulletin said no definite garden plan could fit every local condition. Draw each crop's location on paper. Let row directions serve cultivation rather than fight it. Ask the State Extension Service which varieties suit local conditions. Use quick timing examples only where the source actually gives them. Radishes were listed at 20 to 30 days, with possible successive plantings maybe 2 weeks apart. Then write down what happened. That is the whole entry. No miracle harvest, no complete diet claim, no guaranteed savings, just a measured plot, a written sequence, local adaptation, and a record that can correct the next season. The larger 1935 Farmer's Bulletin number 1746 keeps the boundary visible. Under most conditions, it allocated 1/2 acre to miscellaneous vegetables, 1/2 acre to fruits, and 1/4 acre to potatoes or sweet potatoes. It said that combined allocation would supply the average family with the greater part of that class of food normally consumed. Even the larger plan kept its promise narrow and linked garden and orchard production with poultry, dairy products, and sometimes home-produced meat. The little city plan survives because it is modest enough to tell the truth. It helps a household organize fresh vegetable work in limited space. It never replaces the whole food system. What you should feel here is quiet competence, the feeling that comes from measuring the ground, checking the source, and refusing to ask one small plot to perform a miracle. The 5-cent 1930 bulletin gave us a planning method. The 1935 Farm Bulletin showed the much larger fruit, vegetable, and potato allocation it recommended under most conditions. The 1936 Talk reported useful 1935 household numbers and a printed arithmetic inconsistency. You now know where each claim begins and where it stops. That boundary is a form of dignity. You do not need a miracle story to make 1,800 square feet worth planning. You need an honest drawing, a safe site, work the household can sustain, and records clear enough to improve the next attempt. If this entry helped, leave one word in the comments. Garden, that is all. I read everyone. Next time, we will investigate the 10-cent Bureau of Standards Circular Number 383 washing, cleaning, and polishing materials from 1930, alongside the Department of Agriculture radio script, A Handy Cleaning Closet. We will ask a narrower question. Which simple household materials appeared in those old guides? What specific jobs were they meant to do? And does the 3-ingredient claim survive the source check? Any unsafe historical mixture stays in the archive. Do not mix household cleaners and follow current product labels. Subscribe if you want to join the recovery of useful household knowledge without dragging the myths along with it. This is not a channel, it is a family ledger reopened one entry at a time.